नमस्कार. आयच्या ह्या खाशेल्या कार्यावळीन तुमकां सगळ्यांक येवकार. जेन्ना आमी हिंदू मायथॉलॉजी किंवा पुराणा बद्दल उलयतात तेव्हा सदांच आमकां एक उल्लेख दिश्टी पडटा तो म्हणजे विष्णू आनी शंकर जेन्ना जेन्ना ह्या पृथ्वीचेर संकट येतात त्या वेळार ते अवतार घेवन ह्या पृथ्वीक वाचयता. जेन्ना जनजीवन विस्कळीत जाता अशा वेळार ते जनजीवन स्थिर करता. आयज आमच्या वांगडा एक स्टुडियोन असो मानेस्त आसा जो जे कॉपरेटीव बँक्स देशान आसा ते लॉसान आसा किंवा जेंचे लायसन्स कॅन्सल जावपाचे आसा अशा बँकाचे रिवायवल करपाचो प्रयत्न आमच्या वांगडा आयज मानेस्त आसा तो करता. आमच्या वांगडा आसा अंशुमन जोशी. ही इज द चेअरमॅन ऑफ धनवर्षा ग्रुप. सर, वेलकम टू द शो.
Hi, thank you.
Sir, just let me know first that how many banks you are currently working on to revive in the country?
Well, I'm actually working on 4 cooperative banks in order to amalgamate them and merge them into a single financial institution to make a small finance bank in the country, as per the policy of RBI, to make sure that cooperative banks can actually be converted to a joint stock company as per the higher power committee of RBI.
Are there any laws that are recently made that will benefit the urban cooperative banks?
Yes, there has been in fact a boon to the cooperative sector. In fact, in the recent amendment in 2020, which is called the Banking Regulations Amendment Act 2020, there has been an amazing amendment that is basically passed, in the parliament. It eventually says that cooperative banks in the country can actually go ahead and issue, capital by way of a public issue, So basically they can go onto a stock exchange, get listed, take out IPOs, though, rules for the same are to be framed by SEBI. So I think that's in the process right now, And also, banks have been permitted to eventually go for private placement, So investments by way of private placement would be allowed now. It has been allowed in this amendment, which is, I think, I would like to congratulate the new Cooperative Ministry of India, who has bring in this legislation, which is amazing for the cooperative sector.
Okay. When do you think the depositors will get their money which are under moratorium or whose license are in the cancellation part?
Well, usually there's been a new amendment which is basically pertaining to the DICGC amendment bill. So this basically says that these depositors, where if they have deposits into banks where the banks are under a moratorium or the license has been cancelled, they will be usually paid just in the case of similarly like in the case of PMC Bank or other banks whichever has come under moratorium. Not giving a reference to any specific bank, but almost all of them. Now the act eventually says that within 90 days. A majority of the depositors will be paid deposits up to 5 lakh rupees, which is the insured amount, So up to 5 lakh rupees, if their deposit is up to that much, they will be paid within 90 days. So if it's more than that, then there is a process of liquidation, and once the assets of the bank are liquidated, then the remaining people with higher deposits are paid after that. But up to 5 lakhs, they are paid by the DICGC insurance. Sorry, yeah.
What does the Section 12 in the Banking Regulation Amendment Act 2020 speaks about?
See, it talks about basically the banks to be able to go for issuing, equity by way of getting listed on the stock exchange, by way of a public issue, like IPOs on a stock exchange. Also, it also talks about private placement. So investments can come in from private players. That's also eventually a big boon for the cooperative industry because the banks desperately need capital. That's a major problem in the cooperative sector.
What possibly can be done for the cooperative sector to increase their share capital?
Well, I think they can go for private placement, at this point of time, and I think later on, once there are rules framed up by SEBI, and RBI, the Finance Ministry, in purpose of, listing these cooperative banks onto a stock exchange, then I think they can go for a public issue at that point of time. Right now, I think it's best to go for a private placement.
Okay. While going through some of your articles, I've read that you are also trying to revive the MAPSA Urban Cooperative Bank. So,
well, that is correct.
The procedure?
That is correct. We've just, given a, proposal to the Finance Ministry in reference to and proposed investment of 200 crores, which would be coming into MAPSA Urban Cooperative Bank, subject to approval of the Finance Ministry. Once we receive that, we should be investing 200 crores in the bank, eventually with the objective of eventually reviving the bank. And I think it's a very good bank. It was eventually, founded by the father of Mr. Parikar, at some point of time. So it has a vision.
Yes.
And I think it had 24 branches, which was amazing for the bank. And I think if you look at a state like Goa, it also has the area of operation permission from the multi-state registrar, the central registrar, under the Multi-State Cooperative Societies Act 2002, that it can basically operate out of many other states except Goa as well. So I think it'll be amazing for for this bank to revive, because this can go nationwide. As per the High Power Committee of RBI, there is a policy which allows cooperative banks to convert into a small finance bank. So if capital is infused in this bank and the cancellation of the license is stayed by the Honorable Finance Ministry, then I think we would be able to go ahead and convert this into a small finance bank, which will be a joint stock company. And simultaneously, we can also go for public issue in the near future. So I think the bank would do really nice, and I think it has a phenomenal history. And I think looking at the bank, I think almost every Goan is almost very much aware of the bank. So it has its own, its own name,
Identity.
its own identity, and not just that. The best thing about the bank is going to be, I think it's a perfect bank for making it a small finance bank. Also a commercial bank. It's a scheduled bank, so which is very good.
Okay. Many of the people have their account in that bank. So how do you think, or how much time it will take to revive the money back?
I think due to this new DICGC amendment, they should be able to get their money back fast. But I'll be honest with you, just in case if it's delayed due to whatever legal reasons, I would suggest this thing, that as soon as we have the approval from the Finance Ministry for the stay on the cancellation, and as soon as the bank restarts operations, they should be able to get their money within no time. I don't think so that it's going to take a lot of time. And also, I think a shareholders group is also going to go to the court, eventually seeking legal recourse to eventually make sure that the bank is revived. The cancellation of the license is stayed by the Honorable Court, which we are going to request, in our prayer. And I think hopefully everything should go good, and in the interest of depositors and the shareholders, I think everybody should go ahead and support the bank and its depositors. I think so it will do very nice.
In the process of the revival of the money, do you think that they will lose any kind of money because of the shareholders or the depositors?
So the best part, is if the bank is revived, they're not going to get a haircut on anything. So they're not going to lose even a penny. So unless if it's a merger, then the possibility in a merger is then it's a high possibility of them losing 10, 15, 20, 25, 30% of the deposits. But if there's no merger and if it's revived, then they don't lose any money. That's the best part.
They will not lose any money.
No, they will not lose any money. Yeah.
So how they will be benefited?
See, the biggest benefit to them is going to be if the bank is revived. Right now, whatever money that is stuck up, in the bank, I've heard that recently, a lot of money was paid to them. I heard 230 crores was paid back to them earlier. And now I think whatever is left over, considering the current deposits, they would eventually be able to get their money back, which is number one. Because I think it's a business of trust, and I think whatever has happened in the past, due to whatever reasons, best known to everybody, I would like to say that, I think the bank has sufficient assets. Since the bank has sufficient assets, my advisors, my team, we all think it has sufficient assets. And I think if they're liquidated, the bank would not be in negative net worth, Also, by way of our proposed investment, the bank is not going to be negative net worth. It's going to be in a positive net worth, and it would comply with the regulations of RBI to run itself operations as a bank. So I don't think there should be a problem. I think according to our legal team, according to our lawyers and everybody in the country, I think we have a very strong case when it comes to getting the license reinstated. In fact, it's a good news for all the depositors, and I think they would be able to see this bank back very soon. the process of legal recourse and all of this can take a little bit of time, but I think as soon as we have got the stay orders either from the finance ministry or from the courts,
Yeah.
the honorable courts, then eventually we would be able to, literally restart operations completely. That's what it is.
Okay. So you just now mentioned negative net worth. So what do you suggest the urban cooperative banks so that they won't go in the negative net worth?
Well, I suggest them that they should always request their members to eventually infuse in capital, or I think it's a time where a lot of banks are eventually getting into negative net worth during their RBI inspections. So I think I would recommend them to go for private placement at this point of time if they think that they're short of capital, or they think they're going to fall short of capital during the inspections, so that their license, they don't come under the moratorium and their licenses don't get cancelled. Yeah.
Soon you are going to organize a National Cooperative Summit 2022. So could you please tell our viewers about it?
Yes, we are actually in the process, Dhanvarsha Group, we are going to organize a National Cooperative Summit 2022, eventually inviting the Honorable Cooperative Minister of India, Mr. Amit Shah, who is phenomenally working in the sector. Being a cooperator himself, he understands the sector very well. And I think he would be able to bring in amazing framework for the future of the cooperatives. So what I would like to let you know is that I think personally in this National Cooperative Summit we're going to be inviting all the key stakeholders, which means all the urban cooperative banks, all the federations, state federations, national federations of cooperative banks, and also the cooperative ministers across the country, so that we can have a key discussion on the sector, the policies, the framework, the laws, because there's a new cooperative policy which is being formed right now by the new cooperative ministry, which is supposed to come out soon. So it will be vital for all the stakeholders in the industry, the cooperative sector, to come together in one platform and eventually discuss the needs, to make whatever amendments possible in future, so that we can actually really make this dream come true of Mr. Amit Shah, the Honorable Cooperative Minister of India, so that we can eventually make it a $5 trillion economy. In fact, I would say not just $5 trillion, we should be able to make it a much larger economy if certain legislations are put into place, And I think the central government can. I don't think there should be a major challenge with that, in fact.
Are there any cases that whose licenses of banking licenses have been cancelled and reinstated?
Yes, the best part is this is a perfect time to do this. Why? Because there has been a legal precedent set. So this legal precedent which has been set is eventually set by a bank based in Satara in Maharashtra.
Okay.
It's called Jijamata Mahila Sahakari Bank. So it is a bank where their license was cancelled by the RBI. Then the finance ministry has reinstated the license of the bank. Since they have reinstated the license of the bank, so it itself is a legal precedent, and it is perfect for us to go, forward and work towards the MAPSA Urban Cooperative Bank, because I personally feel, and my team and the team of experts that I've got, everybody feels we are of this collective decision that I think we would be able to revive this bank in a much better position, because there's already legal precedent set. When there's a legal precedent, the bank has sufficient assets.
Yeah.
So while the license was cancelled, I don't know what was the situation, right? But all I can say is, according to their balance sheets, according to their inspection reports, according to all the documentation that they have pertaining to this, their financial position is much stronger, because the assets, the actual valuation of the assets was actually not taken onto account. So I would like to say that the money of the public is very safe. So public should keep confidence in MAPSA Urban Cooperative Bank. It will revive, and they will be able to get every penny back. I don't think there should be a problem. Plus, I think they also are supposed to receive quite substantial amount of sum from the DICG insurance. So I think once that also comes in, it'll, because the bank has paid a lot of money from their own liquidity. So I think they should be able to revive. I don't see no reasons for them not to revive. I think if RBI would have taken this into consideration,
the valuation of the assets, because the properties were not realized, they were not liquidated and sold. That's why they could not do it. Then the bank would not have come into negative net worth, and the license would have precisely not been cancelled. Yeah.
What strategy would you use to revival of the Mapsa Urban Cooperative Bank?
Well, we have a very simple strategy, according to the law of this country, and we're going to go ahead. A group of shareholders is going to move, in the interest of all the shareholders of the bank,
Yeah.
to go ahead and challenge the cancellation of the license before the court. Also, they're going to go ahead and challenge the liquidation process which is going on along with that. Simultaneously, the so-called proposal to the finance ministry has been given out by our business group eventually to invest 200 crores in this bank. And I think with that kind of capital, when it comes into this bank, the bank will be in a phenomenal situation, and it will directly comply with the regulations of RBI to convert it into a small finance bank. When you talk about the revival of the bank, once we've got the stay from the court,
Yeah.
from the honorable court, or we've got the stay from the honorable finance ministry, wherever we get it, first, I think they should be able to get it very soon. As soon as the private placement formalities are taken care of, and then as far as the new management comes in, by way of elections, and thereafter it is going to eventually pass a resolution, in the annual general meeting with the shareholders of the bank, and if they agree to convert into a small finance bank, which is beneficial to them. Also, the current shareholders would benefit whenever the bank goes into a public issue. So it will create an amazing valuation for the stakeholders. So that is beneficial for them. So whatever the value of the share they have today for the bank, tomorrow, when in future, maybe 1 or 2 years down the line, whenever it goes for a public issue and it is on a stock exchange, so that will create an amazing valuation. So in fact, it is a boon. For this revival is a boon for the stakeholders, the depositors of the Mapsa Urban Cooperative Bank, and I think it's very much in their interest.
You're also planning to start a stock exchange to help the urban cooperative banks to raise their capital.
Yes, we are actually going to have this National Cooperative Summit in order to discuss the idea with the key stakeholders across the country, and we're planning to basically start a stock exchange, in the country for the urban cooperative banks. We are proposing a joint venture with the government, most probably with the central government, and if the joint venture goes well, then I think we would do it. Otherwise, independently, we would definitely pursue. There is no question, because I think there is a need for the cooperative sector to eventually go ahead, and majority of the banks which are bleeding is only because of the liquidity issues, the capital issues, share capital is less, they come into negative net worth, that's why they get into moratorium, that's why the licenses get cancelled. So I think right now they were only allowed to raise capital from their members. But what is going to happen now with this new legislation, Section 12 of the Banking Regulations Amendment 2020.
Yeah.
So basically, the benefit with this amendment is going to be that they would be able to eventually raise capital, by way of a private placement, which is a very good thing. It is a boon for the sector, and not many people in the sector know this. So I think, through you, I would like to approach and reach almost all cooperative banks across the country, so that they understand that now they are able to go and raise capital by way of private placement. So they should consider their prospects, their proposals for the same. And I think whenever the stock exchange is started, whether we are part of the team who gets this whole thing restarted for the industry, or we are doing this in joint venture with the government, or maybe SEBI frames up rules and this is done with the regular stock exchanges, it will be anyway a boon for the cooperative sector, because the banks will, if you look at the small finance banks right now, they have created amazing valuations when they've got onto the stock exchanges. So I think the lowest valuation, I would say, which has come in, has been for Suryodaya. Suryodaya has created a valuation of 1954 crores, whereas if you talk about AU Small Finance, they've gone over 20,000 crores. So I think the valuation of this bank, if people don't know it, for them to understand, and the stakeholders, it is a stock that they should sit on, and I think they're definitely going to get the benefits of the revival. Once they get the benefits of the revival, they should stay with the bank because whenever it is on the stock exchange, I can tell you this, they are going to make a phenomenal valuation on the bank. Yeah.
Yeah, you are also planning to make a asset reconstruction company to sell for the urban cooperative banks to sell the bad loans.
Yes, there are some legislative issues when it comes to state level and district level cooperative banks that they have not been permitted to sell sell their assets, their NPAs to asset reconstruction companies.
Yeah.
So I think this is also going to be a key discussion during the National Cooperative Summit that we have, with the key stakeholders, that I think we will propose to the government that you should permit or bring in an ordinance or something that could basically, that should be implemented with the states all across the country, so that all the district and state cooperative banks should be able to, sell their bad loans to asset reconstruction companies. So at least they could do provisioning on their balance sheet, at least that could be off their balance sheet, you know what I mean? So that is much better, and I think a fabulous ruling which came by the Honorable Supreme Court, that now the urban cooperative banks are eventually permitted, by the Honorable Supreme Court's order, that they could also go ahead and do recoveries under the SURFACI Act, which is also a lot of cooperative banks, should implement it. I think, a lot of cooperative banks in the country are not really aware of that fact, which they should implement. They should do aggressive recoveries. And I think even in the case of MAPSA Urban Cooperative Bank, what I would like to say, a lot of recoveries can happen, and I think it's a good bank. It's going to do really nice. But I think we need to work on it. We need to eventually get its license back. Since there's one license which is already reinstated, believe me, we would be able to, I have full faith, in the legal system of the country, in the judicial system of the country, that we would be able to get justice for these depositors of the bank, the members of the bank, the shareholders of the bank.
What suggestions do you want to give to the new urban cooperative ministry
To the new cooperative ministry?
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of suggestions I would like to give it to them, and in fact, during the National Cooperative Summit, we will do that. And I think most important thing is this, that since the Section 12 has been passed in the Banking Amendment Regulations Bill 2020, the rules have to be basically, they have to direct the SEBI and they have to direct RBI to basically work hand in hand, and also the Finance Ministry, to basically frame up the rules, because the banks were allowed to raise in capital only from its own members, not from outsiders. So this is a major challenge which is going to come in the way of implementing this. So they have to work out a way to eventually go ahead and bypass that, either by way of making a further amendment or framing this in the new cooperative policy and implementing it all across the country. That's what they should do. And I think they should request all the states to implement it too, because there are thousands of cooperative banks in several states like Maharashtra, Gujarat, states like Kerala, Karnataka, all these places. There's an absolute cooperative movement, and I think this is these states are the backbone of the cooperative sector. So I personally feel that the new policies that the new cooperative ministry is coming out with, it should help these banks to be able to raise more capital so that they don't bleed. And if they don't bleed, then they're not going to be weak. They're going to be in a much better situation, so that they can eventually, right now they're fighting for their own existence. When they don't have capital, and there are a lot of issues that are there. There are regulatory issues, there are administrative issues. So I think now the banks have to be tech savvy. They have to implement new technology. Many of the banks are ran by traditional managements where they're not able to implement, technology which is required today. So in order to meet the competition with commercial banks or small finance banks or payment banks, they should be able to, with this new core banking system which has been in place with almost every cooperative bank in the country, they should use that, take out their debit cards, come out with internet banking. Even RBI should come up with reasonable policies for these banks to grow. Because according to the current norms, the smaller banks are not able to grow because of, certain restrictions that they put on into the smaller banks. So basically, the challenges are bigger banks can grow without much of a problem, but the smaller banks to grow, well, it takes its own time. And so I think they should also try and help them, instead of having heavy NPAs, bulky NPAs later on. Instead, help them grow, help them eventually sell their NPAs to asset reconstruction companies. This is what they should do. I think that's what the RBI's perspective should be.
Sir, how many banks you want to go for the merger procedure?
Well, I think I would personally say we could actually make a commercial bank. I think we would be working closely with at least 10, 15 banks across the country. You know, these urban cooperative banks in several states, some are multi-state, some are within the state, district, state level, and we'll bring them together. So under the new amalgamation process, you know, we should be able to amalgamate them into a single institution and actually make a commercial bank out of it. So I think we would like to eventually say this, that, you know, if MAPSA Urban Cooperative Bank of Goa Limited is going to be revived and, you know, the license reinstated, it could be also a commercial bank in the near future. So that's what I can say, and I see great hope, a great future for the bank, and I think a lot of them, you know, are going to come up together, because I think that's also what central government is trying to work on, so that there is lesser burden on the economy. And I think banks, you know, should be able to grow, and banks should be able to go nationwide. You know, there should be no restrictions to be, you know, no constitutional restrictions to remain in the said area of operation. They should be allowed to go all across the country so that they can grow.
So with the information you have given,
Yeah.
we can say that you are the savior of the cooperative bank.
Oh, thanks for saying that.
With extensive knowledge of the cooperative banking and cooperative sector and your aim to revive the cooperative banks in the country, to support the Honorable Cooperative Minister of India's thinking to build 5 trillion economy with the support of the cooperative bank. तर हे असले आमच्या वांगडा अंशुमन जोशी, चेअरमॅन ऑफ द धनवर्षा ग्रुप. अशाच प्रकारच्या वेगवेगळ्यो कार्यावळी आम्ही तुमच्या मुखार घेऊन येत रावतले. तोपर्यंत पळयत रावत प्रुडंट.